Are you tired of watching shows that only give you general social media theory and expect you to figure out how to apply it to your own industry? Join us for this week's episode of Social Chatter, the industry's longest running social media marketing news talk show. Not only will you learn the latest breaking news, but you'll also gain practical advice on how to apply it. Now here's your host, Christian Karasevich.
Welcome everyone to Social Chatter, your weekly social media marketing news talk show. This is episode 310. Let me make sure I got that right. So 310. Just a couple of quick notes for you, by the way, for those of you who are watching. This show is being pre-recorded this week. So we're pre-recording it. We've got a great guest for you. We will be showing up in the comments as well to answer your questions. So if you have any questions about this week's topic, definitely let us know. So as you know, social media news, it's always changing. Last week, we talked about LinkedIn dark mode. Well, this week, LinkedIn is also rolling out another update, and these are going to be called LinkedIn Articles for Pages. And we're really excited to talk about these because LinkedIn Articles for Pages, they're a game changer, I think, for businesses looking to grow their presence on LinkedIn. So I'm going to go and bring on my co-host, Sarah. We're going to kick things off, and then we're going to bring in our guest. So Sarah, it's great having you join me yet again. How you doing?
Yes, I'm great. Yes, and this week's social media news is all for the business people out there, which makes it quite coincidental that we have an agency owner coming on today who works with a lot of businesses about their online presence. It's Rich Brooks, who is founder and CEO of Flight New Media. He's also the producer of a digital marketing conference called the Agents of Change, which also has a podcast. He's an author. He wrote The Lead Machine about generating leads for your business. And it's great that he's here because he's also working on a new concept about how businesses can be more remarkable. And today we're talking about all these great tools from LinkedIn and Facebook about how businesses can be more visible and engaging online. So welcome, Rich.
Well, thanks so much for having me. Nice to see you, Christian. Nice to see you, Sarah. Wow, this three-way split is very thinning. I should come on this more often.
Yes, it's our CNN moment, right?
Yes. At the same time, I feel like I can't even move my chair too much or I might go off screen. So I'm going to try and just stay right where I am, not fidget at all.
So I run into that when I'm always like trying to you're trying to use your hands and I'm like, oh, they're out of frame. And I'm like, hold on, I got to bring them back in frame. So
you got to get like little hands on sticks that you can kind of go like this and move it around. Yeah.
That's a good idea.
The little TikTokers. I actually... True confession, I've been watching some TikTok lately, and the tiny hands, I have to say, are kind of fun. So, yeah.
Well, it's fantastic having you join us for Social Chatter. So did Sarah did she tell everyone enough about you? Was there anything else you wanted to add?
I think that's pretty good. I mean, you talked about Flight, my digital agency, Agents of Change, which is a conference, but also a podcast. I do a weekly podcast, and we're up to episode like 410 or something like that, and the book. So I think those are the important business parts of my life, at least.
Fantastic. So, Sarah, let's get down to social media for business.
Exactly.
Where do you want to start for this week?
Well, let's start with LinkedIn LinkedIn had two announcements. One was embedded within the other. So we're pulling out that embedded one, which is LinkedIn Articles for Pages. So this is a chance for businesses to publish long form content. So when I say long form, I mean long form. This is up to 125,000 characters. So LinkedIn is becoming like a little microblog site. And for those of us who've been around social media for a while, we may remember that LinkedIn publishing was a thing for profiles for a long time. And then it went away and then it kind of came back. And now it's coming in for pages, which is great. Facebook used to have this feature too called Facebook Notes. So it's great to see that LinkedIn is giving pages an opportunity to do more things. So things like live events, more advertising, and now these longer form content. So you can see they outlined a 3-step process, but we actually broke it down and took some screenshots so that you can actually see how this is going to work. So when you're on your Facebook business page, what you want to do is click publish. And if you can just jump to the next slide, Christian, we can show people. So it's where when you start a post, you're going to see that you can add a photo, video, poll, and then it says write article. So you want to click on that write article bit. And what that will do is open up an editor. It's going to look very familiar to everybody as a WYSIWYG editor, where you can add visual elements. LinkedIn is really recommending that you create pick a visual that's stunning and engaging. And then you can write a headline and content. And Christian, if you go to the next slide, there we go. So you can upload a cover image, write a headline. That lower banner shows where you can add more images or video or links. So it's really anybody who's familiar with creating a web page content, this is all here. You can have normal text, headlines, bold, underline, all of that great stuff so that you can make that post just like you would a blog post, scannable. You can pull out information, you can bullet information. So use all of those tools that make a blog post readable. You can make your LinkedIn article readable too. So you're also going to get analytics behind this and hopefully get some community engagement. So I'm going to open it up to you two to ask what you think about LinkedIn articles.
What do you think, Rich?
So I don't want to be the curmudgeon, but I'm going to be the curmudgeon. So I love LinkedIn. Right now, it's my favorite social platform. I love the fact that it's all business because I'm mostly in B2B. I love the fact that there's no or little politics that goes on compared to other social media sites. And I love that I don't need to spend a lot of time there to get a lot out of it. Plus, it's just a great way of generating new business. Here's my concern. LinkedIn has for too long ignored the importance of company pages, business pages, which is ironic because it's mostly kind of a B2B social media site. So I think it's going to depend on whether or not LinkedIn decides to give a lot of visibility to these articles in the feed and for how long. Because we've all seen these social media sites like Facebook with live video, right? Where it's like everything's live video. And then suddenly you can't find live video at all. So they experiment, they see what's going on. I still think of LinkedIn, even though it's a business platform, as a person-to-person platform still. We rarely engage with pages, in part because LinkedIn hasn't done a very good job. If this is the beginning of a bigger plan to make pages more important, businesses more important, brands more important, great. But I'm just concerned that if it doesn't get enough love, it's just going to be another place that gets ignored in LinkedIn. Personally, I think it's worth experimenting with. But what I would probably do is take some content that's already been published on my blog, repurpose it, post it to LinkedIn, and see what happens. But I also am concerned that that's going to be its downfall, that everybody's only going to be publishing, with few exceptions, repurposed content that people can find on the blogs. So it's great to reach a new audience that might not be reading your blog, but I guess we'll have to wait and see if LinkedIn really thinks this is going to be a valuable tool for businesses.
So right. Do you think that, okay, so that, like, going back to that point you just made about, people repurposing content, should they, typically, okay, so they can go on LinkedIn if they don't have a blog right now, great place for them to at least start. Again, this is the same, you've probably heard this spiel, same thing. They can go over to LinkedIn and do this. Hey, they could go over to Facebook, and they could have done this with Facebook Notes at one point. So,
or Medium.
Exactly.
Or Medium.
Lots and lots of options. So the great thing is, if a business doesn't have a blog and they finally decide, hey, you know what, LinkedIn's where we're going to spend our time, they can at least start, I guess, on this. But how much time do you think somebody should invest? Should they write, new articles, for example, on the LinkedIn company page, or should they maybe write, a short synopsis and then link back to the original content? Should they take the entire article and just basically make a carbon copy of it? What's your take?
I never think you should do a carbon copy, but I'm also a big believer in developing out your own intellectual property in a place you can control it. So my recommendation is you start with a blog that you should have definitely already created on your own website, get the SEO benefits from it. Then maybe a week or two later, you can repurpose that content for LinkedIn. And then depending on the length of it, you decide, do you want to do like a teaser of the article, which I don't think is going to work on LinkedIn, or most of the article, but maybe only the value add, email lead magnet is available on the website. So you tease that at the end of the article back to your website. But I would still be using this platform to try and drive traffic back to my website. And I wouldn't be giving LinkedIn the SEO benefits of publishing there first. But that's me. I know not everybody cares about SEO, but I'm always about SEO.
Right. But I haven't seen anything with this. I shouldn't say right? And I haven't seen anything that LinkedIn is going to ding you for duplicate content. So LinkedIn's never really been crawled by the web browsers for duplicate content. So you could repurpose some of your blog content on LinkedIn, make it shorter, tease people how to read more, go see our website or see more tools here in another blog post. I think it's a great way to, in a creative way, repurpose some of your content that you already have and bring people back to that property that you own.
Definitely worth experimenting with. I just don't know that I would be I don't know about you guys, but these days, back in the day, I would write a blog post 3-4 times a week. Now it's maybe once every 3 to 4 months. Mm-hmm. And it takes me 6 to 8 hours to write it. I'm not giving LinkedIn 6 to 8 hours and the SEO benefits, but I could see spending maybe 15 to 30 minutes or having somebody on my team do this for us, and repurpose that, rewrite it, come up, there's the mirror image idea where you take the article on like 5 ways to get hired immediately, and you turn it into 5 ways to make sure you fail that business interview. So you just do the evil twin version of that. Maybe that's what you end up putting up to LinkedIn. That's kind of how I might experiment with it. It could be a great discovery platform. And that's maybe where you use it to just build up that audience a little bit more.
Right. And teeing up that discovery piece, LinkedIn, as part of this announcement, is also saying that you can find some of the trending articles in a news section. So when you go to your profile, and I think we have a screenshot of my profile that we're going to pull up, there's going to be a new section for news. So you can see some of the trending titles in the news section. And I think Christian's going to bring it up on screen so that we can see it too. So in the upper right-hand corner, you'll see LinkedIn News. So if you see something that's trending or something coming up and you have a blog post that you could be part of the conversation, that might be, and I say might, especially given what Rich just said about how much time you want to spend on this, but you might be able to get into that conversation with some of the trending news and use some of that content as a test, right? If you already have invested the time to your own blog, this could be a way to get into that conversation or be seen a little bit more.
I got to say, I like the idea of experimenting with this because, again, I mean, you don't want to, like, to Rich's point, I mean, like, you write a blog post and, like, you don't write multiple ones every week. And you may write one every few months. I know I write one at least once a week, but the amount of time that it does take, you always try to like find, little like snippets of like, hey, how can I get this done faster? Like, how can I shave like 5 minutes off of doing this week? And, here's the thing. I like the idea of putting this on LinkedIn, but I still think, you need to have your home base. You got to own the content. You got to own the experience. I will say where I think this could be pretty cool would be, I don't know if LinkedIn has thought about maybe adding a live component where someone could be like reading the content and there could be a way to maybe embed some of their, live features that they've been rolling out into some of that content. Something to make it a little more engaging versus like, another Medium or another Facebook Notes that some people are going to use and a lot of people are probably not.
Was there anything about comments on those articles? Like, are they going to allow blog comments, which might add to the conversation and engagement?
It looks like they will. Because this is part of a broader announcement by LinkedIn about trying to support small and medium-sized businesses in producing more content, engaging with their audiences more. Because I think they recognize too that these business and company pages aren't doing a lot. Unless you're a big brand, they really aren't doing a lot. And they're not doing a lot for you either. So part of this announcement too is expanding live, is looking at notes and advertising too on LinkedIn. So it's very much part of a broader effort on LinkedIn's part to support small and medium-sized businesses. And in their mind, small and medium-sized businesses is 1 to 200 employees. So we really are talking about small companies.
I have to say this. I mean, the great thing about this is there's nothing you really have to do as a business. All you need to do is have those ideas and then just go to your LinkedIn company page on your LinkedIn account. And then you can go about starting to write those articles. I like the fact that you can include snippets. There's also obviously hyperlinks. I'd love to know if I was reading, you could even include some scripts. And so I'd love to see if there's, other ways to make that content more interactive without somebody having to manage a website, add all the, plugins needed to do this. And, how do I add this as well? So I'd love to see something like that there. So anything else you want to add on this, Rich or Sarah?
I'd say it's bringing back something that they've had before. And that's usually when a platform puts a little more algorithm juice behind it. So those that actually use this new tool, if you can use it in a way that isn't a giant time suck, to try it and see if that brings more visibility to your company page.
Fantastic. So Sarah, I'm turning it over to you. What other social media news do we have this week?
Sure. So speaking of small to medium-sized businesses and business tools, Facebook has to be part of the conversation too, right? So Facebook, we've seen them all summer roll out new things. On July 1st, they have really pushed everybody into Business Suite and Creator Studio by eliminating a lot of the metrics and insights that you used to see just on your page. They're really pushing us all to Business Suite, and they are building out a lot of Business Suite right now. So what they're doing is integrating ads and messages into one piece for your one dashboard for your page. So we keep hearing this. We keep hearing that it's going to happen. It's being tested. It's actually here now. So things like integrating ads and messages, I should say. Some of the examples that they're giving are things like you can have an ad with a button that says click to message. You can use WhatsApp to message people in Instagram. There's going to be a lot of crossover. The ads manager has, I'd say for probably 2 years, has been developing so that you can run all of your ads for the Facebook properties from one dashboard. You can do much more A/B testing between ads. You're also going to be able to do testing of posts. And I find this really interesting because you can basically use similar content in your Facebook posts and see which one performs better. Again, this is post, not an ad, but an actual post. And if you remember, those of us who follow this kind of thing, Facebook didn't really like you to post or regurgitate information. So now they're actually encouraging you to write 2 different posts on the same type of content and test to see which one does better. So this is really a change for Facebook as far as their publishing goes. They're also pulling all of your inboxes together. If you're like me and wondering where did my notifications go, they are now in Business Suite. I noticed they disappeared on me in July, and slowly but surely I've been seeing them come up in mobile Business Suite, but not desktop Business Suite, but they really are there. They're also going to allow business owners to have work accounts. Again, big change for Facebook. That means that a business owner doesn't need to use their personal profile to manage their business suite. So that's a really big change for them. They are also going to offer an option for users to explore businesses. They're calling it Business Explore. It's also coming out in WhatsApp too. So this is going to be a way for businesses to be more discovered. And they're really going to push more. What they're saying is they're really going to push more content for small and medium-sized businesses. So that was a lot, and I'd love to hear what you think about it.
This is going to be an interesting topic. I got to say, I feel like I need a flow chart maybe on how to really deconstruct all of this, because it's like if this then that. I got to say, the one feature I think that's actually pretty cool is the whole messaging aspect. So for example, if you've got an ad that clicks off to a message, Facebook's actually, I like that they're actually going to detect the platform that the user that clicked uses most often and prompt them to message your brand on that service. I do like that a lot, because it is going to help you understand a little bit more about like user behavior, for example. I do hope that will show up in like analytics. But I do like that feature. I like that everything is starting to come together on the platforms. I don't know though. This seems like a lot for a small business to keep up with. What do you think, Rich?
I think that's true. I mean, it's like I had read that article and then I'm listening to Sarah read it to me and I'm like, wait a sec, did I even grasp half of what I read in that article? And this is literally my business. So for me, that seems very overwhelming to all those sort of things. And I know they're trying to put the tools in the hands of small business owners, but we're really busy. So like throwing all that stuff may be a challenge. I thought the messenger stuff was really interesting too. I don't think it's going to work for I don't think it's appropriate for every kind of business. Like I can't imagine anybody really, messaging Flight New Media and being like, so can I get in there today to get a website? Like that's not going to happen. But I could see a lot of smaller transaction type businesses, a lot of retail places, a lot of benefits there, restaurants, deliveries, all that sort of stuff. We have learned during COVID to self-serve, and it's almost every generation is like this. So I think anything that businesses and the social media platforms can do to make it easier for people to self-serve is very interesting. My only concern is how much of this can be automated. Because if I'm running a store of some sort and suddenly I'm getting 24/7 messages from all these different people who might just be kicking the tires, that's a huge waste of my time. But if they're the same 5 or 6 questions all the time and I can set up a bot to respond to those and take care of most of those people so I can respond in person to the 5 or 10% who really need extra help, then that's a huge time savings. So I think for a lot of small businesses, it comes down to how much time is this going to take. If I can automate these things, it's fantastic. If I can't, it's just 1 or maybe 3 more places that I need to pay attention to just to be able to serve my customer base.
And you have to remember also, so for example, some businesses have, I'm going to use the Google My Business example here. So there are businesses that they don't even have their presence claimed, for example, on that platform, or they probably don't even know they have a presence there. And, it goes back to if somebody, for example, messages them through through these new Facebook business features and the customer doesn't, and the business doesn't respond. And that might be because the business missed the message. Because there's, it's that whole fire hose thing coming in. They may, that then may like have that trickle down effect where it goes over, somebody goes over to their Google My Business profile that is out there for everyone to see on Google Maps, for example. And they're able to, they're going to leave a review about the business. They're going to, again, it's moving further and further away from the business. It's out of reach of the business, and so I don't know. I love these features. I do wish that hopefully there's going to be some sort of streamlining here. To help them stay on top of things, because as you mentioned, that's the downside to the whole digital aspect is that things don't ever stop. It's 24/7.
Right.
So yeah, Sarah.
And it's been a really painful transition. I mean, anyone who's like me, who's had to manage any kind of notifications or messages on any Facebook or Instagram accounts, they've been sporadic at best. And so we're missing things for up to a day, not seeing notifications come through or having notifications move. So, and I've been using Creator Studio. I've loved Creator Studio for about 1.5 years. I've been using it. And it's nice to see everything kind of coming into the one place. All of these different Facebook properties, WhatsApp, Instagram, Facebook, all coming into one place, one dashboard. And it really looks like Facebook is trying to take away some of the market from like Agorapulse and Sprout Social and Hootsuite, and to have people just use the Facebook properties for their business management. Even the third-party bots, as Rich was saying, they are creating these different message autoresponders so that you can sort of qualify the leads that may be coming into you through Facebook, or answer some of those most frequently asked questions like, to a restaurant, are you open today? Right. I'm in a town where all the restaurants close on Mondays and Tuesdays. So it's kind of, and they don't update their Google My Business pages. So none of us really know where they are, who's open on what days. So I hope that the bugs get worked out and that this actually gets a little smoother for everybody.
The other thing that I have a little bit of concern about is we just talked about LinkedIn, how they're here to help small to medium-sized businesses, and Facebook, here to help small to medium-sized businesses. Mm-hmm. Whenever a giant corporation that has literally 0 human beings on their support team tries to help small to medium-sized businesses, I kind of roll my eyes, especially when everything has to be done on their platform, on their terms. It kind of feels like I've just been given a really good deal on a townhouse, but it's in a factory town, so I have to go work for that company. Or they've given me all the Chuck E. Cheese tokens I can possibly want, but again, they have to be used at Chuck E. Cheese. So I don't buy into the altruistic belief that they're trying to help small to medium-sized businesses, which I don't think anybody really does. We'll see if these tools help certain small to medium-sized businesses. Sarah, I totally hear what you're saying, that they've simplified it. Instead of having 5 fire hoses or 3 fire hoses, now maybe there's only going to be 1 fire hose, not including Google, LinkedIn, and 1,000 other ways to get in touch with the business. So I hope this helps a lot of small businesses who do generate a lot of their leads and conversations through social media.
So I've got one other question then off of that, Rich, and it's the fact that if I'm a business, obviously this takes a bit of an adjustment, right? To kind of figure out kind of how do I make this work? Are there any tips you can share, that a business should kind of take into consideration right now to help them maybe simplify what they currently do so they can kind of prepare for this?
The advice I'd give is maybe not as specific to this, but something I've been going through personally is only checking my emails 3 times a day, in part to train clients and coworkers that I check my email 3 times a day. If there's a way that, because what Sarah said about sometimes messages wouldn't show up for a day, for certain businesses, that's death. And if there's not a way to say, like, I check these messages, that's problematic. So hopefully if there's a tool in there that allows businesses to say, we check once a day, we get back to you within 24 business hours, whatever it is, that would be helpful. But I do think that you need to decide how you're willing to take on these conversations and have somebody on your team checking those messages like at those specific times a day, or maybe you want to be on there 24/7, but there's got to be an employee who is assigned to that who can regularly check in on those messages. Otherwise, you're setting yourself up for those bad Google reviews.
And, so I guess the great thing about Facebook, at least, is you can set up an automated reply. So that way, if they are going to message your page, for example, then, you can have it at least tell people what that time period is when you check messages. I would also say this. I mean, people need to have honest conversations with themselves because, you mentioned checking email 3 times a day, for example. There are people that they live on email, and the downside is that there's so many distractions at that point. It's like you're in the middle of working on something. Oh, email pops up, for example. Your attention is diverted. So then, going back to your blog post example, you talked about how people take maybe 6 hours or so to write a blog post. That 6 hours could be 10 hours because of all those distractions. So you do have to keep your eyes on the prize, I think, as a business, and know what actually works for you. Don't think you have to be on 24/7 for the most part, but it also comes down to what you sell, and
exactly.
Right.
So.
And to Rich's point about training your customers, training your coworkers and customers that he checks email 3 times a day, you can train your customers too on messaging you through social media. I know some plumbers, some HVAC people, their auto respond, they had been using bots. Now you can use Business Suite, right? So their auto responder is, we may miss your notification. If you have an emergency, this is our emergency dispatch number. So the staff members who are trained and focused on the phone ringing will get that emergency call and won't have to split their field of vision between all these different messaging apps or all these different ways that information could come in. But it is coming through the system that the business has set up, if that makes sense.
Definitely.
So
okay, Sarah, back to you. What other topics do we want to talk about?
Well, still on Business Suite. Here's but wait, there's more piece to it. So Business Suite is bringing in some other apps. And so I really wasn't aware of all the apps. We'll drop apps in the comments too, the other apps to explore. But they are announcing that Vimeo Create is going to be part of Facebook Business Suite. So bringing in all of those tools from Vimeo to help you edit videos. And so it's going to be, it's interesting to see that they are bringing in this different opportunity for people to edit things within Facebook. And Facebook hasn't had the best interface when it's come to video editing or even stories editing. Instagram has far more features, even though it's owned by Facebook. We all know this, right? So it's going to be interesting to see how this Vimeo Create comes in and helps people with their video production. And then we also dropped, we'll drop in the comments too, the Facebook business apps, because there's much more to the story than just Vimeo Create in Business Suite.
So Rich, what do you think? I mean, in terms of creating content, do you have other tools that you like? Do you have people using like Vimeo Create, for example? Do you think integration is good, or do you think people are still going to kind of fall back on using the products they're more comfortable with?
I think it's great that they're introducing more whenever you put creative tools in the hands of more people, it's great. Like, I just love the fact that there's going to be more people being able to create more content. The flip side of that is that whenever everybody starts using one platform, and all of a sudden, I'm sure that they're going to start with a certain number of templates or styles or whatever, you're going to see everybody having every small business having the same style, using the same graphics, all that sort of stuff. I think there's a great opportunity for creative agencies to be selling against something like the Creative Suite and say, like, you can definitely use these wonderful cookie cutter designs, but they are cookie cutter designs, or you can hire us to create something really special for you. I think brands really need to be aware of how they're seen online and to really do everything they can to stand out online. So if all of a sudden you're using stock photography from this library and using this fade effect from another library, it starts to look very much the same very quickly. That's what I think brands that care about those sort of things need to be aware of.
Right. Sort of that Canva look,
Well, I was going to say, Canva is, and I don't use Canva, but my team does. We work with a lot of different companies. There are so many templates in Canva that you don't see quite as many, but yeah, there's a Canva look for sure. Just like when you go onto your Airbnb looking for a place, they all have that black font on the wall that says live, life, laugh. And I'm like, I'm not staying with you. But you know what I'm talking about. So there is a style. You're right. There's a Canva style, and there will undoubtedly be a Vimeo Facebook style.
I got to say, I love the point though you made about the fact that people can use that cookie cutter approach, but that also presents an opportunity. So, if you're, for example, somebody who struggles with making things on your own and you're using the cookie cutter approach, just know that, it's going to have, like, it's almost like you graduate, you start with that and then you move up to having, and not to say Canva's not a real designer, but you move up to having somebody who thinks outside the box, for example, and says, hey, we're going to take some of we know what kind of things you like. We're going to come up with something that is uniquely branded to you versus just, using, the stock photography, things like that. The other thing also I would encourage people to do, get familiar with these things. They have great cameras. And so, if you're like, hey, you know what, I'm taking a lot of stock photography and using on things, you can shoot a lot of those same kinds of photos, a lot of those different styles. And those phones can take great photos. It's literally just up to you. You have to go and just take the photo. Don't think like, oh, well, I have to use stock photography because that's the only thing that's there. Just also kind of have, like a hit list of like, these are topics that I need photographs for, and start to take them, or videos or whatever else.
Yeah. It's nice. Go ahead, Rich.
I was just going to say, even if you literally can't get your thumb out of the way when you're taking photos, there's always a photographer or videographer locally who is affordable, or there's a local community college that somebody's, they need some hours of expertise out in the field. So there's always there's somebody out there who can help you. I agree with you. Like, the secret that nobody wants to talk about the internet is it's literally a series of boxes. So there's only so much creativity in terms of the format. It's about having custom photos. It's about being creative with language. That's where things stand out. So I do think that some people are going to do amazing things with this platform, but some people are just going to not look past the first page of templates, and it's all going to look the same.
Right. Right. I do appreciate that the platforms want us to do more video. They want us to do more of these things. They want to see more of this engaging content, and they're giving the tools for creators to do that. So with Facebook Business Suite, and it's this integration with Vimeo, and there's other apps that you can explore there too. We talked last week and back in July too about how LinkedIn acquired JumpRope. So a way to incorporate more graphics and video and some more dynamic content into your tutorials or instructions, or just explaining what your business does or a product or how it works. So I like that the social media platforms are rewarding creative content, and they're giving you the tools to create that creative content so that you don't have to go searching for it and piece together Canva and Vimeo and this one and that one and pull them all together and remember which app does what.
I gotta say, one last point, people just need to experiment. They need to that's the great thing about this. I mean, for example, you wanted to do something called motion tracking, where when you move, an object follows you. That used to be a very complex task. And now you can do it with many of these apps, and you don't have to be the professional video editor. You don't have to actually you don't put in the amount of time that it takes to learn that. It automatically does it for you. So just finds, and that's where those kinds of shortcuts are really good if you're looking to, kind of use some of those features, but you're like, you know what, I don't know where to start. They're there to take out that learning curve. So,
and I also want to add one thing. So there's so many things we're talking about in just this one episode of The Social Chefs. And of course, you guys are doing this all the time, and there's always something new. It's overwhelming and exhausting if you start listening to everything you can do. What I would say is find something that you enjoy doing. Maybe you enjoy photos, maybe you enjoy video, maybe you enjoy podcasting, and really get very good at that and put the focus there. And don't worry about everything else that's in your peripheral vision. So if you really like this idea of Vimeo and video on Facebook, then spend some time in there over the weekend. Enjoy yourself. Have fun with it. Pull out your drone, pull out your camera, do whatever. Experiment, like Christian's saying. But don't try and do all the things. Just find one thing where you feel that your audience would actually absorb that content, appreciate that content, and you enjoy doing that. And that's probably where you're going to find the most success.
Right.
Absolutely.
Right. My friends laugh at me. They see me taking pictures of a gravel driveway or this part of the water or yet another sunrise or yet another tree. Right. I said someday that content's going to be useful. And I have the photo in landscape, portrait, and square. So whenever I need that background.
Right.
Hey, or all those breakfast social, those what I had for dinner post or what I had for breakfast. Those will come in handy at some point,
They're back. I don't know if any of you've noticed, but what was old is new again on social media. Year 2 of the pandemic, we're all back to posting breakfast. Well, I'm not back to posting breakfast, but a lot of people are back to posting breakfast.
If it's a good breakfast, I'll post it.
Hey, yeah.
So fantastic. So Sarah, okay, so I think we got a couple more topics, right? And then want to chat with Rich, right?
Yes, we do. So I'm going to spend a little bit of time on this next topic and then quick lightning through the rest. So the next piece is that YouTube has had an Ask Me Anything as part of their Creator Insider Boss Talks. And so they've talked to their VP of Engineering about how videos are getting recommended. They've sort of pulled back the curtain. The wizard has spoken about how this works. And I got to say, I've listened to the video. I read the blog posts that correspond to it. I still don't understand. Really what it comes down to is users, right? If you are a user, let's use me, right? I will watch through a very long video and I will engage with it. And so YouTube is going to give me more content like that and more content from the same creators that I view. And if I view creators that have small accounts, they will give me more more recommended videos from small accounts. So really that's what it comes down to. But I really encourage people who are very active on YouTube, who want to know, do I do a 5-minute video? Do I do a 10-minute video? Do I need to worry about recommendations? Do I need to worry about watch time? This video is actually breaking it down and explaining how YouTube is working right now. And again, sum up for this piece is that it really comes down to the user interactions with videos, kind of like Instagram. Think of it like Instagram kind of works the same way. It's so individualized to each user. Is there anything you wanted to hop in, Christian, and say about this topic, or Rich, say about this topic?
I thought the video was fascinating. But again, I'm not a YouTuber. I watch a lot of YouTube. In fact, I've got it on all my TVs in my house. And when I don't want to feel like sitting down and watching a half-hour comedy or an hour-long drama, I'll just watch 12 hours of YouTube how-to videos. So I thought it was really interesting how they did all this. My big takeaway was that you should be creating videos for your ideal clients, publishing them consistently. And since, again, me and my clients are not trying to monetize YouTube specifically, like with ads, I think it's more my whole thing would be is trying to drive them back to the website for conversion, which is, I know it's getting old hat, but that's what I think about all the time. So I'm going to create how-to videos or something videos, and I'm going to use those videos to drive traffic to my website where I can have a deeper conversation.
Absolutely. And I got to say, I mean, just the YouTube algorithm in general, I mean, so it's based off of they like to see when you're, for example, if you're publishing things, look at the analytics. So look at your YouTube analytics and see when should you be publishing that video? That's one of the first things. And here's the thing, you may look and say, oh, well, it says, 10 o'clock is when people are watching, but guess what? If everyone else is getting 10 o'clock, don't publish at 10 o'clock, maybe publish an hour or 2 hours prior to that. So that it kind of, sort of, if you think about it, kind of gets a little bit of a head start, but you also want to make sure that, you have additional content that you're able to serve up as well. So if somebody, for example, if you happen to, and remember, every video published is not going to strike gold. You may have one video that really performs really well. Make sure you have, go through the motion, but make sure you at least have that video and you have a second video ready. So if they like that first video, they're able to keep watching something that is potentially relevant to the one that they were, watching at that point. So I like the fact that they're starting to kind of share some of this information. And again, also think of it like this: everything that you watch, when you engage, when you get people to comment, for example, all of these are signals that tell YouTube what that person wants to watch next. So for example, Rich, you watch a lot, you might sit down and watch a video, but everything that you watch contributes to what YouTube then decides to show you. So again, it comes down to if you watch a certain user, they may start to show you one user over another user. For example, they may show you, for example, if you're interested in watching, let's just say watch
comic book videos.
Okay, so
travel
comic book
bloggers.
You're going to start to see not just comic book videos, but you're going to also then start to see potentially similar creators, for example, of those comic book videos. Sarah, if you're looking at travel, same thing. You're going to see, if you're watching the lifestyle vlogger, for example, you're going to start to see more of that content versus, oh, hey, it's that, slickly produced YouTube video by a travel company, for example, because YouTube's figuring out, well, hey, you know what? You're not interested in what the big corporation is showing. You're more interested in the smaller travel blogger. So
exactly.
But pay attention to those. So, again, it goes back to we talked about this at the beginning. It's the signals that those platforms want. So for example, if LinkedIn tells you, they want you to be writing long form content, start doing that until they say, you know what, we want something else. Facebook, same thing. If Facebook puts the preference on live video, use that until it's not working and then move into something else. Same thing for YouTube. YouTube's constantly updating the algorithm. So there's nothing is completely static and always the same. So it's always going to be dynamic and changing.
Right. But when they have the VP of engineering talk about how it works, listen to that conversation. So
it's listening to for those of you who used to be big on Google search, you had Matt Cutts. So for example, he did the whole, Google algorithm. I don't think he's actually working at Google anymore, right? I think, Rich?
I don't think so. I haven't seen anything from him in a while.
But for example, whenever he spoke, people listened. It's the same thing. You have a VP, of engineering talking, listen to what they have to say. And then use that to help you craft some of your content or adjust your existing videos. By the way, don't be afraid to go back and adjust the past videos as well if they're still performing and your analytics are showing they're still performing. So
right.
Awesome.
Right,
Fantastic,
right.
Sarah.
Great. Well, two more quick pieces of news before we get on to some questions for Rich. Christian, you had mentioned YouTube analytics. YouTube is now expanding analytics on mobile. So if you're on the go and you are compelled to check how those videos are performing, you can do it on your phone now. So definitely follow the link that we've tweeted out on the Social Chefs Twitter account. Woo! And certainly read the blog post about this episode, and we'll have links to how you can find that on your mobile devices. And I also mentioned a little bit, WhatsApp is now going to have roll out a business directory. I think this is going to be folded into the Facebook business directory as well, or the Facebook Explorer, I think is what they're calling it. So just stay tuned that your business may be more discoverable on WhatsApp and Facebook in the coming weeks and months. And so that's what we have for our topics today. So we want to get into some questions for Rich. So yay! Rich, you've been in this digital biz for a long time.
A long
time. And for anybody who hasn't listened to the Agents of Change podcast, I would say definitely go check that out, because there's some great folks who are diving deeply into different topics in digital marketing. Very timely, very helpful information. And Rich, you are also exploring a new concept that you're talking about businesses being remarkable. So we want to give you a few minutes to talk about this concept and what being remarkable means.
Yeah, well, thank you. So recently I took a speaking course from Michael and Amy Port, Heroic Public Speaking, and started working on a new presentation, which ultimately involved, it was basically, I work with so many companies and many of them struggle to figure out why their marketing isn't working for them. And it just started getting me thinking about, why do some companies succeed online and some don't? And a lot of it comes down to the fact that some companies just seem to be more remarkable. And when I say remarkable, I just mean that they're doing something that's worth remarking upon. So I'm not the first person to come up with this, right? We've heard about Blue Ocean Strategy, unique selling propositions, Seth Godin's Purple Cow. It's about finding that thing that really helps you stand out. And when you do that, when you find and identify and lean into this remarkable aspect of your business, then all of a sudden you start attracting the right type of clients, while at the same time keeping the wrong type of clients at arm's length. You start building up these unassailable positions in the marketplace, because it's difficult to challenge you on this aspect of your remarkability. And also your marketing just becomes so much more effortless and effective. So it's something that I think every business should take an internal look and try and figure out what does or could be remarkable about their business. And the formula component of this is just these 4 lenses that I've kind of identified by looking at all these companies that stand out. And then I'm helping people kind of go through that process. And I'll just share with you that the 4 lenses are find, which is, it already exists, your remarkability, and it's just about naming it, identifying it, leaning into it. Another one is focus, and that's a lot about niching down. The third one is called fashion, and that's really about creating something that's not intrinsic to your offering, but is in alignment with who you are or what you're trying to do. And then the last one is frame, which is this whole idea of how you position what you're doing in the marketplace, maybe reframing it so that people suddenly recognize how remarkable your business actually is. So that's the gist of the remarkability formula.
I do love this formula, Rich. And let's spend a little bit of time on a couple of these concepts, because I think it's really worth people thinking about in a deeper way. So when you say find and the niching down, some people may be really scared that, well, won't I lose customers? So how is that find? How does that work in the identifying piece?
So let's focus on what you just said, which is the focus lens, right? So niching down, it's terrifying because everybody at the beginning of their journey wants to be all things to all people. And that is the fastest way to lose business. You don't want to do that. And in the presentation, and hopefully one day the book, when I get around to writing it, there'll be examples of companies that really started to narrow down. And one good example is actually John Lee Dumas, who, when he started, there were a lot of business podcasts, but they were all weekly podcasts. And he decided that his differentiator was going to be that he was going to do a daily podcast. And everybody told him that it just couldn't be done, that most people only want to listen to once a week podcasts. And they were probably right. But John knew that there was at least a component of the audience that did want that daily inspiration through audio. And so he created a podcast for that smaller audience. I mean, it's ironic because he actually did more, but he was doing it for a smaller audience. And from that, he built up an incredibly loyal group. And whenever journalists wanted to write an article about podcasts, who did they turn to? The Entrepreneur on Fire, who was publishing daily podcasts. And that was just one aspect of why his business has blown up. But, that's just one example. So when you think about focus, it could be narrow your geographic area, narrow who you're selling to, narrow your offering, narrow the products that you use in your offering. Now, I'm not saying that all these might be good business decisions, but it's about figuring out how do you stand out by just continuing to narrow down until you are the best and the only company offering what you do to a specific audience. And that's the power of remarkability, or the power of focus, at least.
Power of focus. Yeah. Yeah. No, I love it. I love it. And you said fashioning was a little bit different.
Yes.
So can you explain why bother fashioning something that's not intrinsic? So how does that work when you're focusing and then fashioning?
So one thing to keep in mind is you may use one of these different lenses, or you might use all of these lenses together to really create something. But I'll give you a couple examples of people who have fashioned things. So one is Barilla pasta. Now, I'm sure we've all made pasta and then gotten a phone call or been distracted, and suddenly we've got a bowl full of bubbling mush. Well, Barilla created Spotify playlists that are timed exactly to the length it takes to cook their pasta to perfect al dente proportions. And then you can go onto Spotify and you can look at these. Some of these have been listened to like just tens of thousands of times. And they do it with Italian covers of songs you may know. The artwork is done by Italian artists. And it's all about their belief that cooking is art. And so they've combined this into these Spotify playlists. Now, you don't need Spotify to tell you when your pasta's done. You can just set a timer. You can ask that smart device over in the corner to tell you when it's done. But they've created something that is not intrinsic to their offering, but is something that's truly remarkable and has gotten people to start talking about it. So that's just one example of how you might create something that people aren't required to use to buy your product, but does help you stand out as being remarkable in your industry.
I love the Barilla Boss. I love their playlist. I saw you mention it on social media, and I just thought, this is genius. This is absolutely genius. So part of this too about being remarkable, you had said in the opening that it makes digital marketing much easier. So explain to us how that is. Social media is so noisy. There's so much competition. How is this remarkable framework, this remarkable model, helping with the digital marketing?
I think once you start to really work through these four lenses, you also start to identify who your ideal customers are and maybe who's not such a good fit. And as just one example, that is going to help with your targeting. If you're doing any sort of digital ads, you suddenly have a much clearer picture of who you should be spending money to get in front of and who you don't need to worry about. Also, your messaging. So another example of fashioning is Ben & Jerry's. When they created a recent concoction of different ice cream flavors, they ended up calling it Pecan Resist, and they took $100,000 of profits from the ice cream sales of that product, and they gave it to 4 different progressive organizations. So they really stood behind what they believe in politically. So that's something that got a lot of people talking. And on social media, if you go and you check out the tweets where they release all of these different ice cream flavors, they all get like 10, 15 tweets, retweets, whatever, except for that one. That one just blew up on social media. And it wasn't because everybody loved it. A lot of people hated it and they're like, I'll never eat their ice cream again. But they knew that they had this core audience that would completely buy into us and buy even more ice cream than they normally would. And that helped them really kind of cut through a lot of the noise in social media and get that particular tweet, that which was really just a press release, all of a sudden explode because people started talking about it.
And I think it also has people talking about how Ben & Jerry's, who's part of a very large multinational company, is showing their corporate social responsibility, because that's one of the core pieces of Ben & Jerry's that a lot of people don't know about, is that they have a 3-part sustainability and responsibility piece to the work that they do, and it doesn't often shine through. So I think that example actually shows how Ben & Jerry's is a little more remarkable behind the scenes and is sort of unveiling that to the public who may not really know about it.
Right. Now, certainly there are companies who wear it more on their sleeves. I think Ben & Jerry's does, but maybe because we're both in the Northeast, we know a little bit more about the politics behind Ben & Jerry's. But, on the other side of the spectrum, nobody's buying a MyPillow pillow these days just because they want a better night's sleep. They're either buying it or not buying it because of their political beliefs. And so, but you don't need to sell something to everybody. So again, if you can, and it doesn't have to be even political, it can just be something that is in alignment. Like another example I give is the Agents of Change conference. You don't need to go to the conference to hire Flight New Media and vice versa, but we are both all about digital marketing, reaching your ideal customer. Agents of Change tends to be more of a do-it-yourself aspirational message. Flight New Media tends to be more of a let's do it with you or for you, but it's still the same idea of let's take our digital marketing seriously.
Right. I'm going to put you on the spot, Rich. We didn't talk about this, but you have the concept of being a zebra and not a unicorn too, right?
I feel like I'm at a loss. I'm a zebra. What does that mean?
It was a few years ago. You talked about, everybody wants to be a unicorn, but be a zebra, right? Be a little different, stand out in a different way. This was at an Agents of Change conference. So I
say a lot of stuff. So yes, no, it's smart. If I didn't say it, I'll take credit for it for sure. I love it.
You definitely said it.
Right.
So is there anything else we haven't asked you about the remarkable framework that someone needs to know just to get started?
I was going to say, if this resonates with you, I'm actually in the process right now where I'm giving away free consults, because I'm just going through the process of how do we actually use this, maybe at Flight, but also I'm trying to collect stories for the book and for the presentation. So if this sounds interesting, you're like, hey, I'd love to sit down with Rich for an hour and kind of go through this and figure out what's remarkable about my own business. Right now, I'm giving this away for free. Just head on over to theagentsofchange.com/remarkability and fill out that form there, and then I'll follow up with you.
That's great. Thanks.
Limited time offer.
So, and I actually recommend people, you do have a podcast. I think it came out in July, a podcast about this remarkability model and your process of bringing it all together.
Yeah, people want to check that out. That was episode 400.
Episode 400.
Pretty
okay,
good.
Great.
And here's the thing. It's all about, like, I love the point you made about, just figuring out what makes your business and your brand, like, makes it unique, but also figuring out, like, what are some smart ways to be able to work. I love the fact that you mentioned the Barilla pasta and Spotify. That makes a lot of sense, because to the average person who doesn't know how to cook, they know how to at least put on, a Spotify playlist, for example. And
right.
So, they can listen to that, and there's a great concept there that I think makes a lot of sense. Your Ben & Jerry's example as well. Ben & Jerry's, I think, has a graveyard for all their past flavors, I think, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, so yep. When they have certain flavor, like when they're rotating their flavors, they're still kind of letting them live on, almost like, you're writing long form content and it can live on your website, even though it could be years old, it still maintains a presence, for example. So, I love that. Just again, try to find stuff that helps you be somewhat unique, I think, as a business. But at the same time, it doesn't have to be, if we're a marketer, for example, it doesn't have to be exactly what we think that it needs to be. Like, we're allowed to step outside of our comfort zone. We're allowed to
Absolutely.
You can go, you don't want to go like completely outside the comfort zone, but you can, dabble in some other things, test some different things and see what's actually going to work. So we'll make sure we get a link to your remarkability page in the blog post. How long is that going to be up for, by the way?
I'm probably going to be doing interviews for another couple months. So people certainly have no excuse not to fill out that form.
Awesome. Fantastic.
Exactly.
Very cool. So Sarah, anything else we want to cover today?
I think, we have an agency owner in the show today. We've been talking about some hardware and some different pieces that have been coming out of Facebook. So I really want to know how Rich feels about this new tool coming out from Facebook. We're all familiar with Facebook Portal, right? They now have a battery operated portal, and they are announcing that it's going to be, it has been usable with Zoom and WebEx. They're also going to be integrating Microsoft Teams, but really they're pushing this for businesses to use as a different screen for their meetings, so that you can use Portal more as a business tool and less as a life device, right? With Alexa and having your family dinners and cocktails with friends and things like that with your Facebook Portal, but to actually use it as a piece. And this is something that Facebook has been rolling out this year too, with Workplace and trying to encourage teams to use Oculus to have a virtual reality meeting space. So I'd really like to know from a business owner perspective, Rich, is this something that you would encourage with teams, or do you see it something that other business owners might actually jump into and encourage and purchase for their teams?
Let me preface this by saying my senior year of college, 1990, somebody showed me email and I told them it was the stupidest thing I had ever seen and it will never take off. This is one of the stupidest things I've ever seen. Not that Portal's stupid, but I already have two screens right here and I've got my iPad and I have my iPhone. Why would I go spend hundreds more dollars per employee just so they can have this? The Oculus thing, although I certainly can't see turning my team into a bunch of Tron addicts either, at least makes a little bit more sense because we don't have that tool. But another screen, I don't see that. I understand why some people would want this instead of like the Google screen one or the Amazon screen one, or at some point Apple will bring out. I mean, they already do stuff with FaceTime. Maybe it's a consumer play. I do not see it right now in a business setting. It's just another piece of unnecessary technology that's going to be outdated in a matter of minutes. And my phone does everything it needs to. So no.
Right. Christian and I, when we were prepping this yesterday, because this announced, we were actually prepared to talk about a different tool. And Christian and I were going back and forth on it. And I said, well, it's got a base, it's got a handle. I always drop my iPad whenever I move it around. So I have an awesome screen protector on it, so I don't keep chipping screens. But yeah, my iPad does a lot more than this. Yeah. And I still can't share my screen. 90% of the meetings that I have, I need to share a screen, or I need to show someone, or someone needs to show me something and I need to walk them through how to do something.
Years ago, I got a gift. At the time, was pretty cutting edge. I got a GPS device for my car, and I was like, "This is amazing." And then after a year, it said, "Okay, you need to pay us like another $150 to get the updated software." And I'm like, phew, put the phone up there, and I never looked back.
Yeah,
it's like, and I know phones are expensive, but I already invested in the phone or the tablet or the laptop with the second screen. This is not a need. So outside of the Facebook home offices, I just don't think this is going to be that big a deal. Yes, for home, I can understand why people might want it, but they may also want any of the other competing devices as well.
Yeah. And that's the biggest thing, I think, is everybody wants to play for that ecosystem. So they want to get you into the Facebook, you're already in the Facebook ecosystem, but they want to get you further ingrained in it. You're in the Apple ecosystem. You're in the Windows ecosystem, for example, and once you get in an ecosystem, it is hard to move out of that ecosystem. But again, this was the point I made to Sarah, which was, I've already got a bunch of screens that do this. Apple just released iPads that have center view, which basically moves based off of me talking, for example, or who's in the room. So understand the functionality. I think it makes, I mean, we did talk about the camera placement, things like that, Sarah, but I think again, I mean, I could buy an iPad that will do more for just a slight bit more money. I think it's what, $20 maybe.
And it's going to do a lot more.
Yeah,
A lot more.
exactly.
Yeah. Or any other tablet for that matter can do a lot more. So.
And yes, I am an Apple guy, but and Apple's got its own issues.
Yeah.
But do I really want to give any more of my personal information to Facebook, Amazon, or Google? And the answer is no, because they go out of their way to sell my information. Apple, yeah, they maybe try and keep me in the garden, but they're not selling it to third-party stuff all the time, or at least not to the degree that the other big three are. So I'm not going to go out of my way to give them yet another camera into my house.
Right.
So for those who, by the way, want to check out that Portal, it's $199 for the Portal Go. And then there's also the Portal Plus. Portal Plus is the bigger screen, $350. So when you start to think about it like this, $200, $350, that's like a tablet, a couple of tablets that you could potentially buy at those prices. Yet this one is specific to Facebook, getting you into using the Facebook product, which chances are we already have a mobile phone that we're going to use. We got a laptop we're working on. We got something. And again, I think it goes back to those are just distractions as well, because it's great to have them kind of off to the side, but it's something that gets you away from, your goal. For example, if you're in business, your goal is to, obviously sell more products. Your goal is to help people. For example, if you're, offering consulting. So, there's a lot of other things you can be focusing on, I think, than, hey, I got another device. It's literally going to sit on your desk and you'll probably use it maybe a handful of times. So
for business anyway.
For business.
I know it'd be great to see all the analytics, like, oh, how many people are actually using it for like what we think is the business aspect versus I think it probably has Netflix on it. Like how
it does.
So
yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Very cool.
Yeah, if only I had another screen in my life that didn't have Netflix on it, right?
I know, right? I know the hardest part is nowadays it's like finding the time to part of it is like deciding what do you actually want to watch because there's so many, it's like, oh, well, which platform is it on? Well, what do I want to watch? Like you spend more time, you get distracted basically. So
and finding the password because you got logged out somehow. So
fantastic. Well, Rich, it's been great having you join us for episode 310 of Social Chatter. I just have a couple of last wrap-up points. So if people want to get in touch with you, what's the best place for them to do that?
If they want to just reach out to me personally, I am the Rich Brooks on just about every platform out there. If they love audio content, I'd suggest they check out my Agents of Change podcast, available on all the big podcasting platforms.
Fantastic. And Sarah, how about you? Where can people get in touch with you?
So across social media, you can find me at Sarah Monroe VT. Just make sure you spell it right. And if you connect with me, please send a message and let me know that you found me on Social Chatter, and I'd be happy to connect.
Fantastic. And I'm Christian Karasevich, and I'm at Social Chefs across all the social platforms for my company. Just a couple of quick points, by the way. We've got a blog post recap, goes out over the weekend at socialchefs.com/SC310. We'll get some notes from Rich. We've got all the topics we talked about, all the questions and whatnot. All that's going into the blog post. In addition to that, we're going to be joined next Thursday at 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. We'll be back to our live episode. We're going to have Judy Fox join us. Fox Rocks, I think, is the hashtag she uses for a lot of things. So we're interested to have her join us yet again for another episode. And that'll be on YouTube or Facebook at Social Chefs. So with that, I want to thank everybody for tuning in. And by the way, if you have any questions, just leave them in the comments. We'll do our best to answer them. But we hope to see you all next week. Thanks a lot, everyone. Bye.
Bye.
Thanks.